All right, Dr. Borquist, he likes to take care of his alligators, and he does a really good job of it. Okay, so he is going to try to make sure that his pond is an appropriate temperature so that they don't get too cold once they climb into the pond after having sat in the sun for a little while. All right, so here's the key information. The alligators sit in the sun until they reach temperatures of 41 degrees C. Each of them, well, one of them has a mass of 410 kilograms, the other one has a mass of 90 kilograms. He wants to let them go swimming, but he's concerned about the temperature of the pond, and the volume of the pond is 360 gallons, and it's at a temperature of 5 degrees C. He wants to make sure that as soon as they get in and the temperatures all equalize, it gets up to at least 14 degrees C. He has one heater in the pond that draws 12 amps at 220 volts, and he wants to let them go swimming no later than 16 minutes from right now. Exactly. And so he wants to add this second heater connected to the same voltage supply. He wants to know how much resistance needs to be for that heater, needs to be in that heater in order to make the pond get up to the proper temperature. Okay? So far so good? Where do you want to start? Okay? You want to start with the alligators. I tell you what, that's actually not quite where I would start, because if you think about the formula goes mass times what? Formula for the energy stored in one of these things is mass times specific heat times temperature change. And this is going to be the change in the internal energy, right? And I'll just put a star on there and say this is as long as we don't have any phase changes. So we can't have our alligators turning into a gas or anything like that. Okay? All right, so if we look at that, we already have masses for the alligators, right? So it'll be easy for us to plug in our numbers that we need to for m c sub p delta t for the alligators. Which ones may be a little bit trickier? How about the pond? Right? What are we given for the pond? Okay, we're given a volume here of 360 gallons. It might not be a bad idea for us to take that and try to turn that into a mass before we get too much further into this, so that we can sort of remove that step and get it done already. Okay? So here's what I think is probably the easiest conversion, going from gallons to kilograms of water. This is an example of what the reference sheet might look like on one of your tests. All right? And so if you look in here, one of the pieces of information that was given was that we have a gallon is equal to 3.785 liters. All right? So 360 gallons would be what? 360 gallons times 3.785 liters per gallon, right? That's going to give us 1,362.6 kilograms of water, right? Because water is one, that's actually another piece of information that's on here. What's the density of water? Okay. I think it's on here. It should be. If it's not on here, that's not a big deal, but it's 1 kilogram per liter. Okay? It says down here 1 gram per milliliter, which is the same idea. Okay? So 1,000 grams per 1,000th of a gram, or of a liter. Okay, so 1,362.6 kilograms of water in the pond. All right? So what's next? Are we ready to go ahead and start setting up an equation? We can actually do this with one big old equation. Okay? What we do is we take each item that might be changing in temperature, and we try to sum up the energy change for each of those items that might be changing temperature. So what we'll do is we'll start with the water, right? The water, okay, which I just figured out, 360 gallons of water, right, is 1,300, what was it, and 62.6 0.6 kilograms. Okay, so let's do the water first. We'll say 1,300, I'm going to do it way down here, 1,362.6 kilograms. What's the specific heat of water? Okay, a lot of you have that memorized. In case you don't, it's also on here in this table. It says water is 4,180 joules per kilogram degrees C. Okay, so 4,180 joules per kilogram degrees C. What change in temperature happens for the water? It's always final minus initial, right? What's the final temperature need to be of the water after all said and done? 14 degrees. And what's the initial temperature of the water? 5 degrees C. Okay, so the change in internal energy in the water is given with that little statement right there. Maybe I'll label that above it. This is for the water. What about alligators? What's that? Okay, for the alligators, I'm going to add, all right, I'm going to label this alligators. Okay, there's no reason for me to treat the two alligators separately. Okay, because they start at the same temperature, they end at the same temperature, and they have the same specific heat, right? So I can just go ahead and sum the two masses of the two alligators, right? 410 kilograms and 90 kilograms. Okay, and notice how I qualified all that, right? Make sure that you actually can do that if the specific heats were different from each other, and if the then we couldn't do that, or if the two temperature differences were different between the two alligators, we couldn't do that. But we can do this because those two quantities are the same. All right, what's the specific heat of an alligator? This is a piece of information that if I never taught here, I may not have ever known, but now I know it very well. Okay, what else? Okay, temperature difference, and I'm kind of running out of space, so I'm going to go to the next line down here. Okay, what's the temperature difference? Final, 14 degrees minus, okay, they start out being 41 degrees C. Okay, now what we've got right there are the changes in internal energy of water and of the alligators. What should we set this equal to? What's the total change in energy that happens for the whole system of water and alligators? How do we know that what that change in energy, or how to come up with a formula for that change in energy? Let me ask this. Do we know how much power is being delivered to the system? Okay, or can we at least set up something that would give us what that power would be? Okay, and the power comes from two different heaters, right? Okay, which one, or one of them, we know exactly what power it's delivering, right? Which one? Right, 12 amps times 220 volts. Okay, so 12 amps times 220 volts. That's going to be a number of watts, right? But what's our other thing that's delivering power? Okay, we have another heater where we don't know the resistance value of it, so we don't know how many amps it's going to draw just yet. But do we have a formula that we remember for power given voltage and resistance? Okay, V squared over R. So 220 volts, okay, squared over, and this resistance value is what we're trying to find. Now, I'm not quite done with the right side of this equation. Why not? I need to multiply by time, right? And when I multiply by time, and I tell you what, I'm running out of room again, so I'm going to drop again to another line. Okay. I multiply by the amount of time in minutes, but keep in mind that a watt is a joule per second, right? So when I multiply by minutes, my time basis is not going to kind of divide out. If I multiply by minutes, I'm going to end up with something other than, just nothing. So what do I need to do? Convert that to seconds. So I multiply this by 60 seconds in a minute. Okay? And now I've got this equation that if I just solve this equation for r, that should give me my answer. Okay? How should I go about doing that? Okay? I'll just plug it all in, right? 1362.6 times 4180 times 14 minus 5, right, plus, here I'm going to have 410 plus 90, right, times 3500 times, here I'm going to have 14 minus 41, okay. And in this calculator, keep in mind we have this equal sign that's available, right? So we set this equal to, and I'm going to open a parenthesis here, 12 times 220, okay, plus 220 squared over, and I'm going to put in a variable x that I'm going to try to solve for. Okay. All this is going to get multiplied by 16 and 60. Right? Once I've got all that in there, I hit Shift to get me to this solve command that I have above this key. Right? The number that I have stored in there right now is just whatever happened to be stored into x before I started this whole thing. If you have a nonlinear equation, sometimes it's important that you pick a particular value here, or it might matter what value you pick right here. For this problem, it doesn't matter what we put in for this initial guess for x. So we're just going to hit equals, and it'll solve out. It says 31.46 or 47 is r. Okay, this will be in ohms. Now, do we have a choice that's something like that? Okay. Which one's closest? Okay. So this brings up a good point that many people ask about. Should I be worried that I didn't get all of these decimal places correct? Okay. And I would say, not really. There are some things that can end up being different in these conversions. One of the key ones sometimes is what exactly did we use for this conversion from gallons to kilograms. There, we may not have had a whole lot of precision in exactly how that conversion was made, or we might have used a different level of precision than was encoded into the question. I'll say this, most of the questions that we ask about on our exams in this class, most of those questions do come out to a large number of decimal places being the same, to where if you did everything exactly right, you'll see a lot of decimal places match up, right? But not always. And so it's one of those things you sometimes get a little bit of assurance out of that, but you shouldn't necessarily depend on it. Does that make sense? Now, if I had gotten an answer that was like 32.7 or something like that, now I'm concerned, okay? Because that's a little bit too far out of what could happen with just a different type of conversion on a particular unit, okay? All right, any questions on that problem? Cool, let's go to the next one.